This video was published by mbkpinternational.com. In this video we're going to talk about replacing the blade holder, this dark metal thing here, if it breaks or has a problem with it, on a Guillotine EC19 Pro or Guillotine EC19M. First thing you want to do, you got to remove this crown. So to do that, you need to slide this plexiglass shield back about an inch or so. To slide it back, there's these plates back here, a Phillips screw there, remove it, loosen the bottom one, and it will fall down like that. Just hang, do the same thing to the other side, and then pull this plexiglass back about an inch just to clear that lip there. One thing if I didn't mention, you make sure you unplug this paper cutter from power. No power to it. And then you want to remove the two bottom Phillips screws on the crown on the left side, and same thing on the right side, two bottom Phillips screws. Once you do that, this should pull straight up. Only lift it up as high as you need to clear this, and put it back right here close to that. The reason for that is you got a data cable wire here that you don't want to yank on too hard or anything. It's still kind of loose there if you don't put it back too far. When you're putting this, when everything's already, when you got all this back together again, everything's ready to go, just check this data wire, make sure it didn't come unplugged or it's not halfway hanging out. Just make sure it's firmly plugged in straight before you close it up, because you could accidentally tug on it taking that crown off or putting it back on. When you're putting the crown back on, have someone kind of pulling down on this to kind of feed this data wire back down in here fully, you know what I mean, because you don't want it bunching up in there. So you're getting all the slack on it, and let the slack hang down here in the electronics compartment all down here when you put this crown back on there. Okay, to remove this blade holder here, there's these two metal plates here that need to be removed. It's a fairly simple process. It's just you have to remember to be very careful, because this is basically a giant razor blade. So just as long as you're careful and realize that, never stick your hand under it at any point, or anybody else if somebody else is helping you. At no point do you put your hands down here or under it. Always control this with these lollipops. You're going to do it, or something else, but never put your hands under there. Okay, first thing you want to do is I've already removed a lot of this to make this faster, but there's two 10mm bolts that go here in these slots here with the slots cut out where it go all the way down. See these it doesn't go all the way down there. There's metal there. These are cut out completely. One there and one there. And those are the two you want to put the lollipops into. About 10 turns. Make sure these are on good too, because you want to make sure these lollipops are in here good and everything's screwed on here good, because this is what you're going to control it with now. Okay, when you take this off. Okay, you want to remove this. If yours is broken, it could be hanging down in the down position. So the best scenario would be to remove this blade, and that's fairly easy to do. But there is one bolt behind here that you will not be able to get if you can't operate this machine and lower the blade, like if it's broken, and you wouldn't want to operate the machine. You wouldn't be able to get to this bolt unless you remove this first, which you could do. You could remove that and then remove the bolt, then take the blade off. Or if this is in the up position here and it's broken over there, same thing. You're going to have a hard time getting this bolt that's behind there. But if you want, you can take this off first and get that bolt, and then remove the blade and get it. In this case, I'm going to remove this with the blade on, because you may have to remove it with the blade on. You may feel it safer. You got to decide for yourself which way you feel it more comfortable with, either removing it with the blade on or with the blade off, because yours could be hanging down here and touching here on this side, and it would be harder to remove the blade, because someone would have to lift up on it, and you start doing that, you're better off just not getting your hands anywhere under there. So rule number one, don't get your hands anywhere under this blade. Keep it as far away from as possible, you or anybody else messing with this. Okay, you're going to take this, I'm going to remove it all together, so I'm going to take this plate off here. There's 3 5mm hex bolts here. I already took that one off. There's another one right there, and there's another one down here at the bottom. 3 on that side, there's 4 on this side. One there, one there, one there, and one there. Again, I've already loosened a lot of these up and taken them out. Yours will be fully in there. Get your 5mm. And when you're removing these or putting them back on, you got to watch these bolts here. They're actually spacer bolts. They go all the way through, and they create the space between this plate and the frame. If it's too tight, it'll pinch this. If it's too loose, this blade will be wobbly. So you want to keep them the same. To do that, when you're loosening it, a lot of times they'll stay in the same place, but if they start to turn while you're loosening this, you need to have somebody hold them or put some pliers on them, because you just want to loosen the middle part. And when you're putting them back on, make sure they don't move either. Keep these in the same spot. Don't let them turn. Okay, I've already got this bottom one out. I've got this one out here. You can see it's gone. This is the last one. When you're on your last one, you can hold it here and remove your last one. And this whole thing will come off, and you can put it to the side. Okay, now keep this. This should still be in there good. You can push it right there if you want to make sure it's fully inserted. Just don't get anywhere near the blade again. Now you got this side here. I've already got this bottom one out and this bottom one. Same thing on this. I've already got that out. This is the last one, so I'm going to hold it here on this. You know, a little pressure up while I'm doing this last one. 5mm hex wrench. And that's free. A lot of times the wire for this laser light will be attached to this. It's not necessary to remove it, just kind of slip it through and set this down the bottom. Just keep this wire out of the way. Now again, this is fully free to come out now, so make sure it's pushed in good there and pushed in good there. Okay, now this is the only other thing holding this is this thing here connected to that, this arm here connected to that rod there. And there's really it will pull off freely, but if you kind of pull it, it could bind. So you can, once you got this firmly in your hands here, lift it up slightly. You can have somebody pull on this if you want to get it off. I can do it without it because I'll be shaking it. And this one don't need to, most of these screws will be in if you're taking this off with this on, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to slowly take it out, and I'm going to wiggle it, and you can watch this down here. There it goes. Again, you probably want somebody pulling that loose because you can see I'm having a little problem with it by myself. But it will come off easy. You just need to wiggle it yourself. There we go. You got it completely off. Now again, as long as these lollipops are screwed in good, you should be able to control this fully with this. And let me show you here what breaks on these. Is these things are there's a pin there and they're pressed in here, and a lot of times that pin will break and this thing will fall too, so there won't be nothing. These pins, this one on this side and this one on this side, is what holds these in. So if one of these pins breaks, that's what will allow this thing to drop on one side. Okay, so that's what you want to look for if it's broken. But I'm going to set this to the side for now. And we're going to come in here. And now you're here, all you need to check for, if something did break off, you just need to remove it if it's still in here. And get it and check, make sure there's no big, huge scar marks from anything breaking. As long as it's fairly smooth in here, you're good. And to prepare for the next one, your replacement, just a light layer of grease here. If it's not already there, you can get a little bearing grease from any auto parts store. And it's just all-purpose bearing grease usually, you know. And you can apply a light layer in places like this and this. You can add a little bit more in here, like so, and so. And that's where that thing that could potentially break off goes up and down. Same thing to the other side. Okay, and then when you get your replacement holder, it's better to put it back in without the blade on, just for safety. You can put some grease here, you know, I don't got enough grease, but you can add a little grease there and put a little bit more than I'm putting. And then in areas like this, same thing on the other side, on the end areas, and on this one too, just grease them up good. And then when we put this back on, it's fairly simple. You just need to, these can come off. See, as long as those pins need to be in place, they just go very simple. That round piece fits right into this slot. The other round piece on this side fits right into that slot. Okay, so when you're putting it back on, it's a little bit easier now. You don't got a blade to worry about. This bar you need to get started down there. Now this is where a second person would come in handy, and maybe the camera guy can do it for me. Slowly put it in as I'm push on it a little bit, wiggle it. And get it in the slots there. Looks like it's kind of a tight fit, might have to grease it, but let's see. Put a little grease in there. But as you're feeding into that, you need to feed these two things into those slots. You get it into those slots and onto this at the same time. So now it's part way on. I need to make sure these get lined up to these grooves here at the same time. There, it's on now. Typically those slide on easy. For some reason that replacement was a little tougher to get on, but I finally got it on. I had to hit it with my palm, and now those things are into these channels. It's all the way in now. Pretty simple now. You want to make sure you get some grease back in some of these areas, like in this end of this blade, you know, grease this area here, and grease the end here about the 2 to 3 inch, about 3 inches past the end. Okay. And then you're going to get your plates back again, and you put some grease here again in this area, all in this area here. You're pretty much going to reverse the process. You know, you can start one at the top and get it started. Make sure this don't turn. Just get it started. Oh, I turned it a little bit and move it back to where it was. Okay, that will hold it in place. And you can get the bottom one started as you want to. I'll save some time, but then you just got your other side. You feed this wire back through and get it started. You see the hole right there for it? It's right there. You can leave these in like that. Some of them, like that one's too short. This one requires a longer one than the bottom ones. The bottom ones are shorter, you can see, than these top ones. If the bottom ones get these shorter ones, there should be some longer ones like that for the top ones on this side here. So it's probably a good idea just to leave these in there. Once you back them out, you can just leave them in, and that way you know where they go. I turn that top one again there. Make sure you be careful on that. I'm kind of trying to do this fast, but try not to turn those because those are spacers. Okay, got that one started. And then you just got your other ones to get in. Don't tighten any of them down. Get them all started first, then you can start tightening them down. And that's pretty much it. You get these all tightened down, all 3 on that side, 4 on that side. You tighten these nice and tight. Just don't let this turn. If it does, turn it back to where it was. Just pay attention to it. And once you get this all back in place, this will be back up where it belongs. And you can get everything put back. You know, make sure this data wire is plugged in. Put this hood back on, and then make sure the data wire is plugged back in. And again, when you're putting this hood back on, let me see if I can put it back on. Greasy hands. When you're putting this hood back on, you see that data wire there hanging. And when you start going down, it may or may not want to feed down in there. So just kind of have someone pulling it down and feeding it down in there as you're going. Okay, a lot of time, like I said, I didn't put all these bolts in to make this shorter. Now it's pretty much done, except for you got to put the blade in. And for that, you know, you can just, it's just like changing a blade. The second half of changing a blade, you just need to get your blade back in. You can put a new one in this time, or you can remove your old one from the other blade holder and put it in here, depending on how you want to do it. But there's one other thing I want to show you. There's this hole here you can adjust it with too, so you can do it while it's on. There's that hole your tool goes down into, but basically you got a tool that comes with this, and where that tool goes, it goes right down into there. It's basically another hex wrench thing situation, and all it does is turning that clockwise will raise the blade, turning it counterclockwise will lower the blade. So when you do your first cut, watch how deep it goes into this cut pad. It only needs to go 1 millimeter into that cut pad at most. So if it's going in too deep, you want to, you know, turn it clockwise, I mean counterclockwise to raise it, I believe it was. But you can check your owner's manual to confirm that, but I believe you'd turn it counterclockwise to raise the whole thing up. But I think that's pretty much it. You just gotta be very aware that you're dealing with a sharp razor blade with some weight to it, so just make sure you use those red lollipops and as the only thing to touch. The only time you ever touch that, and you don't even really touch it, is when you're holding that lollipop, when it has a blade on it. When it doesn't have a blade on it like this, you don't have near the worry, you know. I mean, there's some sharp edges there, but it's not going to necessarily cut you. But that's pretty much it. Get your blade back on, and you should be ready to go. Make sure all these are All those are tightened back down. And make sure those don't move when you're tightening about to keep this spacing the same. This video was published by mbkpinternational.com.